Yeah. Yeah, because water is so important in life.
Mind you, this plastic is made in Fiji. It's made out of gold. It's not your average plastic because I can afford that and yours can't. So,
Yeah. Yeah, Fiji water. That's very like luxurious. And it's
yeah,
why your skin is so glowy. Like it makes sense.
0 calories, like 0.
Really? Oh my God.
No, 0.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and like 1,000 milligrams of sodium.
Yeah. And it's like super expensive. Like I heard
Yeah,
it's like a luxurious water. You guys, normal people can't buy that. So like if you want to be
yeah.
as amazing as Ashley is, like
Mhm.
start putting your money together. You better work,
Yeah.
bitch, so you can have that water from
Just
Fiji.
honestly, if you guys like stopped buying your avocado toast, you
Yeah.
would be able to afford this $50 water. Okay. You would be able to buy the water. So
Hmm.
you're the problem, not my friends who are billionaires. Not they who. I can't say names. I signed an NDA. So yeah. Don't be jealous, haters. Don't hate me because you're jealous.
Yeah. I'm so well said, Ashley. You're so smart. It's
I just
amazing.
have a feeling like some people are going to watch this part of the episode and think, oh my God, this is what they're like.
This
What
is
the
what we're
fuck?
like.
And then
This
start
is what
commenting
we're
like,
like.
"Hmm,
Well, they're just
yeah, this is
haters.
who we are."
Like, it's
Yeah,
not
I
our
just add
fault we
on.
were born beautiful and rich. Like,
No, when
it's
I
not
say,
our fault that our
you have to
parents were like
understand.
masterminds and could invent things that are important for society. In fact,
Literally.
because of our parents, your guys' life is so much better. Like, you should be thanking us, really.
And you need to know something. The reason why I don't do like gross like water is
Yeah,
because when I was in the like my mother's stomach, the water, like the sack I was in, was Fiji water, was like the
yeah,
expensive water, like Voss. So I was saturated with that water. So why would I drink tap water when that's the
ew.
water that I've known? I grew up in that water.
You grew up in that water, yeah, 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 yeah.
Was 2 minutes of our new movie trailer coming out soon. Water is life.
Yes. I grew up in that water.
I'm on the right track, baby. I was born this way.
Yes. Maybe it's Maybelline, maybe it's Fiji water in the womb.
Oh my
Anyway,
God. Believe. Maybe it's just water you can't afford.
yeah, work.
Thank you, everyone. That's our episode for today. If you're offended, I can't help you. Have a nice
Yes.
day anyway. You know, I can
Um,
imagine the title and then the starting of this episode. You're all going on a whirlwind at this point. You're on a roller
yeah.
coaster ride. Welcome to our theme park. You're going to have fun and it's free. We're not charging you. I've got hair in my eye. I don't know where it's coming from again.
What angle?
Where are you?
Oh God.
Gosh.
We should. We need to be in some kind of like spoof horror movie. Like it would be hilarious.
Uh,
Where are
the
you?
hair. The hair. Like, what? And then it zooms in on certain angles of my face. Where are
Like a silent art movie type of thing. Like, and then the
Yeah.
music. Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. And the hair has to be possessed,
Yeah.
demonic. And then you just see like clips of the hair coming out. We won't give it a face and then like attack and gets into my other eye and then blinds me and then like, and then
Yeah.
the police rock up like, who did this, man? And I can't tell them because it's hair.
Yeah.
What do I say? Yeah. So then I go and visit other people who have also had their hair possessed. And I ask them, how do you break the curse? It's like Final Destination, like the bloodline one.
You know what? And the end, the person that can solve all your problems is the woman who super glued her hair with Gorilla Glue on her head. It's like, my hair, it don't move.
Don't move. I like this. This would be such a funny, like, parody movie of Final Destination, scary movie,
Yeah.
and like some sort of demonic possession movie put together. I'm excited.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode.
To introduce ourselves, but hello.
Yeah. Hello.
What's up?
Ashley, would you like to embark the people today on your journey that it took from Mount Kilimanjaro to get in front of this camera today? Because Ashley has been on a journey Steve Irwin would be proud of, and all of Australia is rallying behind her today and clapping because of the hardship she has endured. And today she's standing in front of you again, letting it be known and showing through her own presence that it is possible. It is possible. All things can come true. All your dreams.
I love that introduction speech. It really touched the core of my heart.
Yes.
I felt it in my entire self with you saying that. So the story begins. I'm kidding. No, long story short, woke up and I need to put it on silent. Sorry, guys. I just had a little notification pop up and I thought I don't want anyone to hear the little background thingy. My phone decided to go on a temporary holiday. I don't know whether it's Hawaii. No, don't go to Hawaii. Italy, maybe. Italy, Rome, who knows? Anyway, so I had to go on an adventure of trying to understand what the hell was going on, as well as not having a phone for 3 days and relax. I'm just joking around. I was fine. I survived. I lived. But I turned it into a little humorous thing because I was sitting here finishing some stuff off on my laptop, and then I thought, you know what? I'm feeling some origami. I'm really feeling it, like in the core of myself, that I need to do the origami because what else am I going to do? And I thought of the finger game. And for those who know, the one where you pick a number, like they do the thing and then you pick a number and there's a message inside. I thought, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to YouTube it and I'm going to do it. So I literally sat here, did the first go, looked at it and thought, you're a piece of shit. So did it a second time and thought, this is going to be my tarot cards from now on. I'm actually going to put messages in it, and this is going to be the thing. When I need to make important decisions in my life, I'm going to start and then take the thing. Okay, great. I know what to do next. So it was a very eventful 3 days, listening to talk radio, listening to all the ads on radio. Yeah, just I'm shortening the story, but yeah, very, very eventful. And yeah, it's back. It's fine. The screen. Actually, you know what I want to say to you guys? Let this be your warning. Heed me. Back your phone up. Back your phone up right now. Get off this. Get off the podcast. Back your phone up and then come back. But back your phone up because I didn't back my phone up since February.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine how much I lost. But it's okay. I'm a survivor. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to work harder and I'm going to back my phone up. Melissa was like, even Nina was like, wow, you just don't want to back your phone up. Back your phone up. And secondly, seriously, write your passwords and your usernames and stuff down in a notebook or something, because Seriously, I realized that relying on the phone as much as I have been really effed me with this, because I needed certain things that were only in the notes on my phone, but my phone wasn't working. So how am I going to access that? As well as you need codes to get into things, which is also really shit. How does that work if a phone's not working? But anyway, write down your passwords, write down whatever you can. Don't rely on your phone in the entirety, because if something happens, yeah, you'll be in my position. And trust me, it's not fun. I felt like I was an investigator, because I was like going into the depths of the what I could and squeezing every opportunity that I was trying to get to fix my phone or back it up or just something. So take this as a sign to back up your phone and write your shit down. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Brought to
Thank you.
you by PSA Ashley from Australia. Thank you, Ashley, for those wise
Raised in
words.
the wilderness, and she survived. There's going to be a photo of me on the thumbprint just holding my arm out, like coming out of the wilderness, like all the bushes around me and stuff. The origami bushes. So we're all paper around me.
Oh no, no,
I was
that's
making jokes to people that I was in the wild. That's also why we said that.
yeah. Thank you for coming back to society.
You know what? I'm seriously questioning my choices. I might pull out the tarot finger game.
That
You
is
come back
actually a
and you
really good
open up those
idea.
apps. Yeah, seriously. I thought to myself, sometimes I need that guidance. Why don't I just use this and write the messages and then use that when I need to? Because holy shit.
I love that you said the word, you need to back it up, because I had a joke in my mind connected to the topic of today's episode. It's like, who's not backing it up? But I won't be making that joke, because today's conversations might be a little bit serious. I don't
When
know.
you say
We'll get
things
into it.
and then you don't mean it, like, it kills me on the inside a little bit.
Okay,
Can you joke?
fine. I'll make the joke. Don't cancel me. You know who's not backing it up? Virgins, which is what today's episode is about.
Where all the virgins are collectively sitting here going, yeet the phone.
No.
You're fine. That was a good joke. I give it to you.
Thank you. Oh.
You're welcome.
No, but to get started, if that's okay with you, Ash, we've touched on a few of these subjects before. Obviously, if you're not a stranger to the podcast, you know this. We talk about women's health, sexuality, relationships, and what society teaches people to see about themselves and their bodies. But today's episode, we wanted to take a step back and back it up and really look at one idea in particular, which is virginity, and more specifically, purity culture. Because I think a lot of us grew up with ideas around virginity that felt really obvious, to the point where we never really stopped and kind of asked the question where those ideas came from. So, what exactly is virginity? Why does it matter so much to some societies and people? And why has it historically been tied so closely to women's worth? But more importantly, how did we get from an ancient concept of chastity and marriageability to purity rings, abstinence pledges, girls being taught to fear their own sexuality, be ashamed of their own sexuality and being shamed for it, and more broadly, of course, the continued policing of reproductive rights and people's bodies overall. But I think before we dive in today, as we talk, I would really love for you all to please keep this question in the back of your minds, which is, what does freedom mean if we don't have complete ownership of ourselves? And as another itty bitty tiny itsy bitsy spider disclaimer from our side of things, we'll be speaking from our perspectives as women throughout this episode, but it's very important to acknowledge that the policing and influence society has had on our bodies is not solely a women's issue. The LGBTQIA community have also had their bodies, relationships, and sexualities regulated, stigmatized, and punished in different ways throughout history and in the present day. However, because we can't speak from that lens or experience, we will be speaking from ours as women. And yeah, join in. It's going to be a fun time. I'm hearing Madonna play in the background of my mind. Sit down and let's dive in. So Ash, actually, I do have a question for you that I have been curious about since I've kind of thought about everything. And since you're very passionate on the subject as well, my question is, what was virginity described to you, and when did you first hear of it or were taught of it?
Thank you again, interviewer, for your superb skills of interviewership. I think I do believe that it was something that I came across in primary school, but the recollection of memories to it, no. So I will go by what I can remember, is hearing the idea that being a virgin is the worst thing in the world possible. I think that out of everything, I think that was the biggest notion. And then second to that was purity culture with Christianity and the idea that women, no sleepy around, but then the conversations weren't had when it comes to men. And not even just religion, but also the ideas that people held to on the whole purity thing, and the disgust of hearing a woman have multiple partners, but then not giving the same energy to men. I mean, technically you shouldn't be giving the energy anyway, in my opinion, but I think that was sort of the circle that I grew up in, is, oh my gosh, you're a virgin, oh my gosh, you're a frigid. It was just, the reaction was so strong. So many of us felt deeply ashamed to not be like everyone else and lose our virginity. In the movies, they showcase it too. And I can remember watching certain movies like John Tucker Must Die. I watched that when I was young. And the concept in that is the same as what you hear, the whole like, you're a virgin? Are you serious? Like, are you alive? It's just the strong emotions towards it. And then you hear everyone else talking about it. So it builds this deep level of shame within you of, well, there must be something wrong with me if I haven't lost my virginity by a certain time. Why are others like experiencing that at 13, 14? And yet, I'm 16 and that hasn't happened. I'm 18, that hasn't happened. So my experience was mostly around that I think we're going to touch on and break down as we continue. But what about you, my friend?
It's interesting because virginity of itself, in terms of what I learned it to be, I didn't really get a kind of like a glimpse of it. Like the first time I was exposed to that notion was when I moved to America, which was around 10. So that's kind of where I was exposed to it for the first time. And the way that it was always described to me, virginity in and of itself is, because I thought about it. I was like, what is virginity really? And then I thought about it, and it's very interesting because, like, I was like, okay, the only real answer I have to that was always described to me when I was young was about, the hymen breaking in your body, and that is virginity. And once that's gone, it's gone forever. But what I found out later on in my teens is that wasn't necessarily true. because some people are born without one or can experience change into it through sports and such. So I sat with it a little bit longer before we hopped on today, and I kind of did some research for this episode as well, and I just kind of thought about it. I was like, wait, how come all of this is just surrounding female virginity? That was the thing, because like my definition of virginity was female virginity, and I was like, okay, maybe because I'm a woman, so that was what was taught to me. But then I was like, I never heard any other form of virginity being discussed in public. And what about boys? And that's kind of how it dawned on me, how most of it was preached, most of what was preached was always targeted towards girls more than anyone else. And
Yeah.
before anybody gets up in arms, I can understand how that can maybe be under the guise of wanting to protect the girls, whether that's legitimate or not. But it led me actually to do some research on this, because I was like, what is the definition? And actually, I can pull it up for y'all. So, according to the WHO, there is no medical test for virginity. The WHO explicitly describes virginity as a social, cultural, and religious construct rather than a medical or scientific category. There is no examination that can establish whether someone has had vaginal intercourse, and the appearance of the hymen cannot prove it. In fact, according to the website, let me read it to y'all. And I'll be putting the link in the description for all your double checkers. Virginity testing, also referred to as hymen or two-finger or per vaginal examination, is an inspection of the female genitalia meant to determine whether a woman or girl has had vaginal intercourse. As shown in a systematic review on virginity testing, the examination has no scientific merit or clinical indication. The appearance of a hymen is not a reliable indication of intercourse, and there is no known examination that can prove a history of vaginal intercourse. Furthermore, the practice is a violation of the victim's human rights and is associated with both immediate and long-term consequences that are detrimental to her physical, psychological, and social well-being. The harmful practice of virginity testing is a social, cultural, and political issue, and its elimination will require a comprehensive societal response supported by the public health community and healthcare professionals. And that was pretty, like, I'm glad that the WHO has put that on the website and is viewable for everybody, because when I was a teen, that was what I learned of. It was like, well, you gotta, when you go to a gynecologist, they're gonna test you just to make sure. And they used to do that in other cultures and, back in the day. And that is always what I've heard and what I've been exposed to. And of course, purity culture, that went rampant, with just shaming your body and belonging in it. But it just, I don't know. I thought, and this is the reason why I read this, I think it's so important to emphasize, because even the concept of virginity testing itself tells us that this isn't a real thing. And yet, with no medical testing, no physical transformation happening, we've built as a society enormous cultural and moral systems around this concept. And we shame young girls, we shame people in general, but we alienate people when it comes to how to be in their bodies. Like Ashley, you said you heard how it's the worst thing on planet Earth. Ew, how could you not know? And I can tell you, I've had my incidences where people have tried to shame me, and it's always fallen flat, because I'm like, are you an idiot? And also, I don't know, there's so much back and forth with it, with like people shaming you for having it and then shaming you for losing it, that I don't think there is a real win with being in a body, really, just existing.
As a woman.
As a woman.
As a woman. Yes. I mean, when I thought about the concept of sex, which is sort of where I dived into when I was unpacking the layers of ideology towards virginity, I thought to myself, without researching, and obviously it confirms it, but I thought exactly that. I thought, if you look at the detail of this, it's an engaging thing with someone else,
Yeah.
whether it's your partner or just someone you met in the club or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's having intercourse. It's just that. It's
Yeah.
just that. And for me, I don't see the point of a lot of the things that we give so much power to. It's so human created, and the power that we're giving it is human created. And this is one of them. Like, why does sex get such a pedestal to the point of control? And it is control, and the kind of control where mutilation happens
Mm.
to girls and women because of
Bleaching as
some
well.
idea. What did
Bleaching
you
as
say? Sorry?
well. Skin bleaching to look a
Yes.
certain way down there. So you're not gonna like make a man feel uncomfortable. Yeah.
And it reconstructed as well for it not
Mhm.
looking in the lookism of perfection, which is a
Mhm.
whole bunch of you know what? Majority of what we speak about, it always correlates with something.
Yeah.
Because the idea of seeing your genitals, your vagina, and immediately thinking, this is not going to look good to a man or a partner, it's such a, to me, it's like, it's pretty damn serious. Like, it really is
Yeah.
that deep to want to, it's an organ. Your vagina is an organ. It's like, there's just so much. There's so much that I could say with this. But again, when you look at the middle part of it all, it's so insignificant. To me, it's just a part of the human experience. Like when you
Yeah.
have relationships, when you try a new food. Yes, with sex, there is a vulnerability to it, of course. There is layers that some of you might have to, work through to get to a certain point. There's communication. But that's like many other things in life too. It's not, take away the intimacy. You have conversations with people, you have certain things that need to be like peeled apart in layers, where it's, whether it's friendships, family, whatever it is. I just see it as another part of this experience that we have. Some people don't have it, some people do. Who gives a crap? It's just a part of our experience. That's how I see it, but we've taken it, well, human beings have taken it like many other things and molded it through the form of control.
Mhm.
History is nothing but, there is nothing that anyone could say, no matter what sort of history you bring up to me, that would validate the route that has been taken with something like this. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. And it genuinely makes me so sad. I looked a little bit into the history of things. You know me, I like to do a little bit of research. Simply because also I've heard just so many different things on the internet itself about what virginity meant and what it was back in the day, how it got to where it is now, how we as a society talk about it, deal with it, treat the people that haven't had any sex. It just I wanted to look into it. I wanted to be sure and factual when I come to you all today to sit here in front of billions and billions of people.
Oh my gosh.
um, so the word virginity, I looked it up. Where did it come from, and what is its definition? And it's actually really fascinating because once you do start actually looking into the historical facts of things, you realize that the word itself hasn't always meant exactly what we imagine it to be. At the root, though, the Latin word virgo, which translates as virgin, could refer to a maiden or unmarried young woman, but it existed within a much broader cultural context around chastity, marriage, and sexuality. And different ancient cultures had different concepts surrounding virginity, sexual purity, marriage, and women's sexuality. Um, That is important for me to say because I was ready and able, and I will admit my faults. I am sorry. I was ready and able to be like, well, it was Christianity. The Christians did it, the early Christians did it, but it was, in fact, something that was there prior because patriarchy exceeds or supersedes Christianity. And as long as patriarchy has been around, the subjugation and oppression of people have been as well. But that's not necessarily, all too mind blowing, really. But yes, ancient societies had sexual relationships, same sex relationships. They even had contraceptions of various kinds, and they had different attitudes towards pleasure. But they also had enormous social restrictions around sex. And those, like I said, predate Christianity. And it's actually interesting because when early Christianity did rise to power, they took the original idea, well, I wouldn't say original, but the ideas at the time of Roman and Greek kind of societies. And what they ended up doing is developing this theological framework around sexuality, chastity, marriage, virginity, etc. So what before was mostly tied to kind of like, what was it called? Like the father legitimacy, children having heirs, kind of keeping control, women being sold as products. That's why we're still to this day and time being seen as objects in society. It was kind of rooted in family and who is in power and who can stay in power. And now started shifting to virginity and celibacy as a spiritual gateway to being closer to God. A person could choose not to get married and instead dedicate themselves to their Savior. And virginity, then after centuries, became synonymous with Christianity and this purity mindset. So what ended up happening is that sex within marriage could be legitimate, but sexual desire, or what we know as lust, would be portrayed through the language of temptation and sin and self-control. And eventually we got to the point where sexual restraint equals virtue, and sexual excess equals moral failure. So what they ended up doing is putting kind of, for the first time, this moral dilemma around your sexuality. And again, I have to stop and do this again because I know the internet, okay? Now, many Christians out there today may not feel this way about sexuality in women right now in today's time, but I need you to understand this is history, okay? These are historical and cultural traditions that have had enormous influence on Western ideas about sexuality and do affect us in modern times. But if we speed up the timeline a little bit and hit the 20th century, I'm giving you a little bit of a sneak peek of history because I do think it is important for this conversation and important for where we're at right now in society. And I think it was very interesting. I thought it was very interesting. I think you'll find it interesting too, Ash. So the 1920s was, for a lot of people, they call it the sexual revolution. I think it's interesting because obviously there were always issues within society and humanity and just oppression and control. But in the 1920s, we had changing gender roles, and the flapper kind of nightlife dating culture changed dramatically. And there was a lot more public discussion around sexuality and the challenge to kind of question the traditional ideas of femininity. In the 1930s, we had the Depression and political instability, which then reshaped family life while the sexual norms still remain contested. Now we get to the juicy bit, the 40s and the 50s, where we have a massive return to conventional family structures, gender roles, particularly in post-war Western societies, aka nuclear families. So motherhood, marriage, and the heterosexual family life were heavily idealized, And that's kind of where we have this whole notion of like the pretty little housewife that cooks and cleans and is in the kitchen, that a lot of people, 70 years later, still can't let go of. And then the 60s and the 70s. The 60s and the 70s arrived, and with it, we had another sexual revolution, the widespread availability of the contraceptive pill, which has its dark history. I will not get into that, but it also, the 60s and 70s had second wave feminism, changing attitudes toward premarital sex, and with it, changing ideas about marriage and women's independence, think the voting rights, and of course, with it as well, greater visibility for LGBTQ people. But then, as you probably also remember, the 1980s hit, and with it, the AIDS crisis, and fear around sexuality rose immensely around that time. A lot of misinformation and stigma was spread. And of course, in tow with that came a major conservative backlash against the sexual changes of the previous decades, which then leads us to the 90s and the early 2000s. And this is where many people listening and watching, you guys probably recognize the purity culture that we're talking about, which is the evangelical purity culture that kind of permeated the United States and then in tow Europe as well. And with it came purity rings. We had abstinence pledges. We had father-daughter ceremonies, which
Ooh, I have a story there.
Yeah. God, my God, is that problematic? And then we had the, I'm telling y'all, sit down because this might bring up flashbacks for more. The True Love Waits evangelical Christian campaign, abstinence campaign, which encouraged teenagers and young adults to make commitments to abstain from sexual activity until marriage. That's around the time when we had books teaching girls that their sexuality is something they must preserve for their future husband. And the idea kind of permeated that sexual experiences diminishes a woman's value. But the thing is, purity culture at that time, and right at the back end of the 80s, was presented kind of as like a liberation. Right? It promised girls in particular that if you follow these rules, honey, you will avoid heartbreak, pregnancy, STIs, sexual exploitation, and regret. And while abstinence in and of itself, by the way, can I just take a moment? Abstinence in and of itself is not a bad thing. You should have the right to decide how you choose to live and what you want to do with your body. But looking this over and kind of writing everything down and keeping a record of how society moved and the ideologies have shifted, it just, to me, where I'm sitting today, looks so dubious and insidious, because when you pair it with the TV shows that we had at the time around teen pregnancies and how those women and those girls were portrayed as, low economic state, they have no money, they're poor, they're uneducated, blah, 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 blah. There was so much stigma surrounding girls, teenagers, around being pregnant. And my question is just, why was abstinence tied to more value and identity rather than choice? Because instead of, what it should have been is like, you don't have to have sex until you're ready. But what it turned into was your purity is something you must protect. And when you frame it in this way, right, I feel like the walls come up, you're back in like, what's the word that I'm looking for? Survival
Purity
mode.
prison. Purity
prison, survival mode, because now you're not engaged with your body as like a living, breathing organism with your wants and your needs and your desires and, exploring life. You're going about it as like, I must protect because these bad things can happen. So instead of like actually educating society of how can we have healthy, safe sex, how can we make sure we educate everybody on getting testing done, hygiene, things like that. No, it became this notion of you're doing it for somebody else. You're saving yourself.
Yeah.
You're showing devotion. Your body belongs to your future partner or to God and never to you. Never to you. And once I think you tell a young person that sex can take something away from you, you've kind of already made their body not just a moral currency, which plays very well, by the way, into the predatory society in which we live in, but we won't get into that. But you're also alienating that person from their own body. And it's, I think, really showcasing what we're seeing today in 2025, 2026. What do we hear? We hear you need to reproduce more. There's not enough workers. But I'm sorry, I thought robots and AI are taking our jobs. No, it's the immigrants. What about the cost of living? And now we have laws that have been taken away that were made for our safety, for our reproductive rights. And those laws were taken away from all of our bodies. And with it having been taken away, our agency, our choice was taken from us and was decided by somebody else yet again. And it's interesting to me how bodily autonomy is only allowed when it's in alignment with with the government's involved, when in fact they're just our employees. But that's just the thing. And honestly, I'll let you talk because I feel like I've talked a lot. But the thing is, when I talk about telling somebody that sex can take something away from you, that's kind of where my worldview shifted when I kind of put the puzzle pieces together. Because when I was a kid, I was like, I don't want to lose this connection that I have to my spirituality. I was never religious, but I've always been sensitive, or like people call it mediumship. Back then I had it a lot stronger than I do now. And so there was always this fear, now completely false, by the way, and completely just like invented into the subconscious of your mind by some person, by an other person, that I was afraid that if I were to somehow share my body with somebody eventually, that a part of me would no longer be me, would no longer belong to me, would no longer make me my own person. I would give my right away in a way, and I would give my soul away. And I think, I'm 30 years old now. I'm looking back on that as young teenager me, and I not only am livid, but I'm so incredibly heartbroken, because I grew up in the Western society where I would say I had a lot more freedoms than a lot of women do in societies where they don't have that. And there's horrific things happening all over the world to girls right now. But even for myself in this situation, there's just so much injustice of like, how can you run a society to the point where you are subconsciously infiltrating so many people of feeling like their body does not belong to them. Like, you will lose something if you choose to explore it or share it, or like live in embodiment of what you feel. You're always kind of being put into this position of having to deny yourself. What are you denying yourself for? Meanwhile, we have predators running around rampant in society, just taking. And it's just, I don't know. That was the part where outside of just the double standard of things as well, and how that goes into the topics that we had in a prior episode about, menstruation, and how girls are being shamed just for bleeding and growing older. It's just, it's devastating, and it's disgusting to me. And it's horrifying seeing, being older now, how that has kind of landed home. Like, there are points here where I was definitely a lot more influenced than I even realized. And that is disgusting to me. You have no right over my body. And yet every single day, people still have to fight over that. Yes. I just had to do a little ranty.
You do you. You flow where you want to flow.
Yeah.
Thinking about where I'm going to flow, I was thinking of certain movies,
Yeah.
particularly the scenes where there's always a man or a woman, especially in the early 2000s, who hasn't kissed another,
Mm.
like the opposite gender or
Mhm.
something. And especially because I think I was watching the other day, The Duff came up. And for those that have seen that movie, you know. And it's so cringy watching it as an adult now. But I thought about that movie and the whole like the same rhetoric of like, I have never kissed someone before.
Mhm.
And always, as always, everyone around is like, wait, Casey, she hasn't kissed anyone before. Oh, so wrong. So not
Yeah.
hot. And I remember sitting there watching this thinking, I know this is a movie, but the pressure to be pushed into doing these things, there's no flow. It's just kind of like a survival mode at this point. Like, get this done by a certain time, because obviously having sex at a later stage in life is seen as such a.
Mm.
And if you actually asked people what the is about, all I think about is the amount of people, no shame, that say that it's not that deep. But like when you put the puzzle out and you start gathering pieces, it really is that deep, because obviously human beings are the directors, they're the creators of these movies, and a lot of them are belief systems within society. A lot of us have personally experienced this stuff. And I mean, I'd say even for myself, what you see in movies is not what I experienced personally, like this uh, bullying aspect to, not doing certain things. It was more like sometimes I'd get that rare, oh, really? You haven't like kissed someone yet? And you're like, I didn't kiss someone until I was probably like 20, maybe, or 19. I can't
Yeah.
fully remember because I don't actually give a crap. But yeah, and to some people that's late. And it's like back then I was like, oh, well, oh, I don't want to be a late bloomer. What's the
Mm.
worst thing in the world? And like I've been saying at the start, it's quite unnecessary. I really continue to come back to this point of there's no point to me. There's no point at all, especially because speaking on the religious aspect of it, someone that I knew, don't quote me on the ring, in my head it was a promise ring. One of their parents, specifically their father, gave them a purity ring slash
Mm.
promise ring. And I remember when I first heard it, I didn't think too much about it until years passed when I started questioning this stuff. But the ring was like a, f- um, a promise to remain in the space of purity until that person is married. And when I think about it now, it's quite, what's the right word to say for this?
Shocking.
Yes, it's deeply concerning.
Yeah.
I would be disgusted if my father said, here is your promise ring that you will maintain a virgin until I would find that deeply disturbing. And I do find it deeply disturbing, even when I was amongst Christians and I was a Christian myself at one point. I still found it incredibly weird, honestly, without fully getting into the what this actually was. Back then, I didn't, but now I look at it and I just think it's very perverted. I think it's very disgusting for someone to come up. Like if someone came to me and said, "Don't have sex until you're married," I'd be like, "Who the fuck do you think you are to try to control what I do? You don't get that choice." Like that's my mindset, is you will never get a choice for a body that I exist in and only I exist in. It's my choice. It's my choice to do it safely because that is safe for me and the other person or multiple people. It's safe for, like, every aspect of this is about safety.
Yeah.
To me, that's the core. And also, part of that, to touch on this too, there is a coach online who speaks on this stuff and she does lives and that. And I've taken some education and awareness from what she has said. She talks about the reality that body count does not matter. And I remember going through her content and thinking, this is really interesting, and hearing what she would say. And it was, to me, it's very simplified. It matters more who someone is, not who they've slept with. And I'm like, this is what I preach, not in the way of sex, but in the way of general, like, who you are as a person matters. She was talking about it with sex as well. And I'm like, yeah, I care more in the entirety about who someone is. But the factor of caring about how many people they've slept with, that is something that has just been internalized from society. But it matters. It seriously matters who they are as a person, because someone who is a shit person will not care about putting a condom on, will not care about safe sex, will not care about listening to your needs and pleasuring you as well as not just themselves. Someone who is not a good person, right? The outcome is not safe. And that the stories are like endless, especially what I've seen on TikTok, what I've read. Oh my gosh, stories I've heard from other people. The person that you are intimate with, it matters. And from hearing her speak, I thought that is like the connection that made there was like, oh, explosive. This is why I have been very stern in my choice, because I would never mingle with a shitty human being, with an asshole who doesn't care about other human beings. I would never mingle with someone like that. Why would I sleep with someone like that? Honestly. So it's so like simple, but then people will find it so difficult in their own cognitive awareness to put two and two together. In her comment section, they'll be like, but it's just a woman having all these men. It's gross, like she's being used. It's this idea of the more people you sleep with, somehow it's like an old use of the body then, and when you get them, they're not pure and young. Pedophile thingy. I am going to get into that because Nina, you're like, I'm not going to get into it, but it is very on the lines of pedophilia, in my opinion, for this idea that a woman needs to come to you clean, pure,
Hairless.
innocent, hairless, like shave the whole thing down there when the hair is there for a reason. And also, it actually sucks. It actually sucks shaving it. Like bald, it sucks because the process of it growing back, and it's very uncomfortable for a lot of women. Truly, and I'll be the first to admit it. It's entirely uncomfortable. So 100%, I'm not afraid to admit that pedophilia is amongst this as well. And the protection, I mean, Australia, as an example, is the second largest consumer of child abuse material. You can't bullshit the reality that purity culture is also in alignment with pedophilia. The idea of pedophilia, it has saturated so many different things in our society, and this is one of them. again, if you just put the puzzle pieces together, you start to hear this shit for what it is, and you're sitting there thinking, what? Ask yourselves, like, why do I care if my partner comes in? As long as they've been safely engaging in sex, as long as they're respectful, as long as they're a good person, why does the whole purity thing matter? Why does the whole innocent thing matter? Why does the whole gross, the body's being used? I think that's pretty, even saying that sentence makes me cringe on the inside.
Mm,
The body's being used. It's such a disconnect to the human body as well,
mm,
because intimacy, you can be intimate in so many different ways, not just sex. So why isn't it used then? Why is sex the only thing that the body is used? Because there's a penis going in a vagina, and then what? Like, I think that also correlates to the whole breaking of the hymen. Is that what it's
mm.
called again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also in connection with that, and somehow that is also correlated with dirty and used. You could break that from riding a horse. Did you know that? You can Google that. When you think that it is the entirety of something, trust me, there's always something out there that can give you a bit of a, oh, expand what I'm thinking this is. Oh, there's something more to it. Trust me, if you really look at where your ideas come from, it came from another human being's need to control, need to have ownership. It came from an ideology that wants nothing but a collective preference to be saturated in their own. It is everything to do with human beings needing to control. I can't say that enough. That's all it is to me, including in religion. When it comes to women, I mean, even men too. I will say, God, it was definitely difficult having male friends. And then what I would say was so in alignment from the crap they've heard over the years of having multiple partners makes you a winner, makes you a man, being that experienced and being able to tell. I think that's why a lot of men in their groups, they use that as a common conversation of who they slept with that day or week or whatever. This is the stuff I used to hear growing up. It's like, who did you sleep with on the weekend? There's no other conversations in the world that can be had. It's just based on how much of a man you were on the weekend. Like, good on you, mate. You slept with Sally, Hallie, Melly, and Cabelly all at once. Yeah, and then everyone celebrates. You get a cake, you blow out the candles, and the candles are each of the people you've slept with. And you have a notebook and you're all marking, like, who's the winner for the week. I honestly think this gets taken, who knows? Who knows how far? But it's it's quite infuriating where we've
Mm.
taken this and the pressure that we've put on human beings to meet something that I don't really see. You could go for your whole life without having sex. What then? Like, nothing. It's nothing. Nothing happens. You made the choice, and that's it. You go for your whole life without having it. I know what it is. When you pass and you go to the spirit world, they say, how many partners have you had? And if you've had zero, you go this way. If you've had many, you go that way. Like, there's some bullshit. I I just lost my train of thought of where I was going with that.
It's okay.
Trying to
Like,
be sarcastic. Um, it's not when you leave the world that, well, actually, I'll say I think people that are religious would say differently.
yeah.
But there's nothing within my own belief that believes that when you leave this world that you're punished for
Mm,
engaging in sex before marriage, but also to having multiple partners. I think that's, like, just listen to it. You're punished for being intimate with people. We naturally are connected in so many ways to each other. We feel so much love, we feel so much care, we feel so much empathy. And some of us, like, we explode that into the world and we want to shower people in it. We shower ourselves in it. Others need, time and practice. And it's just like we have this ability. So why is it like so many other things? is it psychologically manipulated to be some sort of a punishment that you fear, and then you psychologically fear it? So then when the time comes, when someone gets married and they engage in sex, they're too busy fearing it than actually enjoying it with their partner. Because over time, the continuous programming of fear, it shapes the ideology of sex in that. So instead of something being connecting and loving and intimate, it is fear, 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 which in some cases causes disconnects between partners because there's no conversation or acknowledgement on what's going on. Because then you'd have to admit that your religion has caused you to fear this, has caused you to overthink it, has caused you a disconnection within your own body. So then that disconnection also shows up in intimate moments in your life. And that's a whole thing. That's a whole thing. But that, the damage that fear does, people know. People know. They know. But it doesn't matter because it gives people the element of control. Keeping people in fear, it's easy to control someone then. And I do believe that teaching women to not be intimate and putting that fear of what's going to happen to them in the afterlife definitely did its damage on previous generations, which is also why they shame women too. Like, women shame women for engaging in sex before marriage. And there's this whole kerfuffle as well that they're engaging in, and they get so ruffled over it. I've seen it physically, how ruffled someone will get knowing about it. And they're in such a disbelief. And it's like, what is the strong emotion you're having? What's the point? What's it for? She's going to burn. She's going to be punished, Her body needs to be purified. It needs to be cleansed now. Like the whole dunking of the water thing. It's like, wow. Because we're dirty and then we get baptized and we're reborn again, right? That's just, yeah. Anyway, I don't know where I went, but I went somewhere.
You went everywhere, honey, and you took us around.
It's so hard sometimes because you have a million different things popping up in your head of so many different experiences that you've had throughout your life, as well as what you've learned, and trying to put it into words and focus.
It's hard.
It ain't easy.
Dude, and this is so deeply entrenched into our culture. It's something that I do want to hone back on real quick is what you said with women being used, right? Or used up. Used for what? Used for what? And I want to ask this question because I think I touched upon it earlier. We talk about it all the time. There is such a double standard between men and women when it comes to sexuality. Because a man, like you said yourself, who has had experience is often framed as, he's the man, he's experienced, desirable, masculine. It's something to be proud of in society. Guys share jokes. They have group chats, taking advantage of other people. We're not going to get in there. But
oh, don't even with the group chat, Tina. Oh my gosh.
I've heard so many horror stories with how men choose to engage with that whole thing. But a woman with that same experience is suddenly described as used or easy or is somehow less valuable. And I think I say this all the time, but the words we use, the language we're speaking is incredibly important with where we're at in society and how we've been taught and how we choose to continue on, because used is used for what, and you can only ever be used if you're an object. You use an object. You can't use a person. You can use an object though. So is it that you see women as objects? Women are just objects. They're just things that like a toilet paper, you wipe and then you flush down the toilet and you wash your hands and then you move on with your day. Is that what it is? Because a woman does not lose her value every time somebody touches her. And yet it is this deeply ingrained idea that somehow sexual experience adds to a man's worth while taking away from a woman's. And it extends in so many different areas. Like I said, menstruation, where your body is doing something natural, but you're being forced to hide it. And in many cultures, that is, taken and turned into something horrific. But essentially, what we're learning in every single way is that young women, long before they even begin thinking about having sex or actually having it, you're being taught to be disconnected from your body. You're being taught that your blood is embarrassing. You're being taught that your breasts are sexual, breastfeeding in public. Everybody has their opinions. It's fine. Your breasts are sexual. Like your desire is dangerous. Your reproductive system is something you have to control and protect. And if you can't do it, then the man will, and we're surprised when so many women grow up feeling alienated from their own bodies. And I think that alienation can become so much more complicated when we think about gender as a whole. Because if society tells us that our bodies are supposed to fit into these predetermined categories, this is what a woman is, this is what a man is, this is what your body is supposed to do, this is how you're supposed to experience it, this is what you're supposed to do with it, this is what you're not supposed to do with it, then anybody who doesn't fit into those boxes, into those expectations even, can experience that same feeling of disconnection in a completely different way. And I want to be careful here because I can't speak, like I said at the top of this episode, I can't speak for people who are transgender, who are non-binary. None of that is my lived experience, but I do think there is an interesting common thread in the broader question, again, of bodily autonomy. And that is what happens when the way society tells you that you are supposed to experience your body doesn't match the way you actually experience yourself.
Yeah.
Whether that's a young woman being taught to be ashamed of her period and sexuality, or a person whose gender doesn't align with the way society has kind of decided their body should define them as, there's always this underlying question of who gets to tell us what our bodies mean. And I think that is evil. I don't care if you're religious. I don't care if you're not. I think that is evil. Our bodies are not vessels for God or for religion or for a husband or for society's expectations. They're the places we actually have to live. And we should be allowed to know them, to inhabit them, to question them, to change our relationship with them, and ultimately decide what our bodies mean to us. We are the ones living in our bodies. We are the ones occupying this space. And that goes with every single type of experience you can have, whether it goes from skin color to gender to who you love. It doesn't matter. This is such a deep topic, and it is so horrific to me because so many people never got the choice. So many people have had to live in restraint and control and suppression and oppression, and never got the chance to experience what it's truly like to live as a being, before we categorize it, subject it to bullshit, and then make movies about how you should be. Like, dude, the 40-year-old virgin, do you remember that movie? Like, I remember when that came out, and all the boys in my middle school started bullying the boys that they had thought never got a girl or whatever. And it was horrific for me to experience on the outside, because I'm just like, why? And I'm not going to talk about that, but like, there were just experiences that I've seen of children in fifth grade where I'm just like, what? I don't know. Call me
Yeah.
crazy. Maybe I'm old fashioned. Like this whole thing of like, you don't want to be a late bloomer. That was like also like used to project onto people like, oh, you're a late bloomer, aren't you? Like,
Mm. And
I don't understand why it's being seen as a bad thing to not think about these things when you're a kid. When you have others, oh, by the way, if you have life experiences that do not align with kind of the normal, everyday, average person, if you go through horrific circumstances, if you go through abuse, if you go through anything, mental illness, chronic illness, like there's so many situations where all of our experiences are not the same. Why would you project that idea onto people as kids? You're projecting these jokes and these movies and this content and all this stuff and these ideas onto children who then project it onto other children, and then it continues and goes and goes and goes. And it's, I mean, we're in 2026, but it feels like we're back in Roman times, honey, because the corruption is crazy, and like people are being controlled left and right. And I understand that, you know, maybe in the past there were maybe people who were genuine about wanting to help society and thought religion was the way to do that or to go about it. But, and also, I do have to say, we didn't have internet back in the 30s and the 20s and I think the 80s. But like, we're so much more intelligent in terms of the, I mean, there is AI that's ruining everything, but we can do our research, we can look into stuff, we can open our minds, we can expand ourselves, and it is our duty to do that, not just for ourselves, so we can start embodying our lives instead of just, you know, moving through it like a zombie and telling letting other people tell us how to be, who to be, where to be, and how to do stuff, and then bullying people who don't choose to live according to those imaginary rules and ideas. It's just, we have the tools now to do better than the generations before. We must continue to do so. And we have to retire this notion of this is how it is, this is how it's always going to be. That's just life. No, it's not. It's a choice. Everybody has a choice. And it's, I don't know, my conversation is just, it always comes back to that virginity is not just this thing of like having sex and not having it. Because when you look at history, it becomes clear that this idea has infiltrated every single avenue in terms, like Ashley said, to control. It's just to control. It's just to subjugate you to what the higher powers want you as a society to mainly kind of, it's like herding sheep. That's how I see it. It's like that dog, that shepherd dog that's like telling the sheep where to go. That's literally what's happening. And that's how I see it. Because the definition of virginity may have changed. Purity culture might not be as strong and as relevant as it is in the Western society right now as it has been, but it's about shame, it's about control, it's about reproduction, it's about power, it's about gender, and it's ultimately, again, who gets decide who gets to decide what we are allowed to do with our own bodies. And I say nobody has the right to control that and say what they want to do. It's my body, bitch. Back up. So
mic drop
I
right there.
like, as long as our bodies aren't free, no matter our gender, our sexuality, who we love, what we want to do, no matter the career we want to have, no matter the country we move to, no matter what we think of ourselves, we will never be completely free until all of our bodies are free. And it starts with women. And it's that's all. That's all I have to say today, honey. I am upset.
That's all, thanks. Yeah.
It's horrific.
I don't think
Ashley.
there's no sanity that can be brought to something that was never built for the true pulse of human beings, but was only invented to, I guess, control the masses and collectively have a say on the existence of something that only the people that live it, like the individual that lives in the body, will ever experience. I mean, when you've experienced like sexual assault as an example, that changes, I guess, the it changes the mind when it comes
Yeah.
to physical touch. It changes the way that the body reacts to physical touch, as well as even words too. Everything is different. Everything is not the same anymore. And the idea that you have when it comes to someone engaging with your space, it's riddled in the violation that the body remembers, that you remember. And obviously, if there's one thing that I continue to learn about society, it's that a lot of people, not everyone obviously, but a lot of people do not want to expand beyond their own space.
Mm.
So to even have the concept, they'll sit there and say, "Oh, you are a virgin." Ugh. Like they might have that projection, but there is no expansion as to the multitude of reasons why someone has made that choice. And I say it's choice. I'm not saying decided to be a virgin. I'm saying a choice not to engage in intimacy in that way, in any form of intimacy, because obviously it's not just sex. It's kissing, it's touch as well, because touch is also a thing. And then not everything needs to lead to sex as well.
Right.
Intimacy is also within that. Spooning, you know,
Oh my gosh,
that's
Ash.
another thing as well. Wow, geez, automatically jump to that, people. Like, I don't know if you
Yeah.
know this, but the intimacy part, the part where you get into the real, how do I explain it? It's like, from what I've
The
learned from other
energy.
people, yeah, it's like you entwine with that person when you're engaging and it's like in touch and without sex. It's like there's so many beautiful things that you can experience with a partner. And I don't see the point in keeping yourself stuck in something that was never created for you. It's not created for you. And I, even in religious aspects to me, it was never created for the people. And I fully stand on that. That I agree with Nina to say, like, you give your body to God, your vessel is to God, but you're here having a human experience.
Yeah.
God's not here essentially making the choices for you and also like projecting when things go. Like, there's no ounce of this that has got a part of it apart from just your faith, obviously, but it's all you at the end of the day, walking through this human experience until you leave it. So you,
Can
I
I
mean,
can I
I'm not
say
going to get
something?
fully.
Can I
What if I
say
said no?
something? Then I shut up.
No, you go right ahead. Speak.
if if that is the God you worship, why would you want to devote your life to a God like that? If that's really what God is like, where they control every single aspect of your life, and if you make a mistake, you're damned to hell and for all eternity, why would you want to worship a God like that? That seems like an
I
incredibly
really like it.
manipulative person. Like, I wouldn't want to be a part of something like that. I would want to be a part of something that's forgiving and ever, loving and kind. And apparently that's what God's supposed to be. So, like, how can those two exist unless it's being manipulated by something else? But yeah, that's your journey. That's your journey. Everybody has to make that decision for themselves.
I mean, I'll say this quickly. Like, it never made sense to me, the idea that you'll burn in hell for intimate relations. That just doesn't. But then
Yeah.
also, if you're a sex offender, you can be forgiven.
Right.
You can go to the pearly white gates. Like, there's so many. I'm not. I won't get into it. I won't get into it. I won't. I'm pulling myself back. I'm pulling it back. But to land my own plane because my mind is shutting down. Actually, you know what? Before I get into that, I want to tell you all a story, like a personal experience that I thought of as Nina was talking. Years ago, 100 years ago. That sounds so like when I say years ago, because it was literally a few years ago. I went out on a date, right? Not a great one. And this person, this guy, proceeded to ask me questions during the date and after. And it was straight away on trying to get an idea of where I was at when it came to sex, or just how much I would be willing to give. And mind you, during the date, there were things that were happening that I was not wanting to give, spaces I did not want to be in, because I was where we were. I was there to enjoy what I was there for. And he had other ideas. And as that date continued, it was saturated in sex. It was saturated in touch, but the touch was linked to that. It wasn't sort of that safe, like intimate touch. It was just so violating.
Yeah.
And as you were speaking, I was thinking about this day, and I thought the other thing too is the attachment to sex also plays
Yes.
a big part in this as well. The pornography that creates this forming of an addiction, an obsession to consistently being in the space of that. That also plays into this too, because it gives someone this idea that they can control how pure you are, but they also have a right to sleep with whoever they want. But it's also the thing that everyone and anyone has to be accepting of it and willing. But that's not safe. It's not safe. There's nothing safe about that. There was nothing safe about that date. There was nothing safe about the conversations that were being had, like the entirety from the moment it starts. No, 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 because someone who is a safe person, right? Firstly, on a first date, this wouldn't even be a conversation. This would not be a first date conversation unless this person is consistently living in this mentality that first date means something, especially the guys who think that if they pay for dinner, and this has been a thing for some reason, that if they pay for dinner, that automatically confirms a aftermath, an after event, an after experience. And I just sit back, and it relates to what you were talking about with the whole object, where it's really just the body parts. Like I heard this years ago from someone where they said, they made this comment where it was like, it would be good to put mouth, like tape over a woman's mouth. So really you just have the body. So you don't have her as the being that's present. You just have the body. And that's assault. Like now, in my adult self, thinking about that conversation, that's assault. So you're just admitting, I don't know if you can say the R word on here, but yeah. So for people to have that ideology, but to also engage in purity for women, it's very predatory. It's
Yeah.
very crime orientated completely. What safe person has this thought? Truly, what safe person has this thought? Has these ideas? Has this belief system? Truly. And that's also where purity culture continues to form unhealthy ideas and attachments within people. Because psychologically, and I've said this before, you can't control how people internalize information. You really can't. And there have been stories of religious men who have used purity culture against women to coerce, to manipulate, to get something that they want out of it. It's just like, there's nothing about it that's healthy. Honestly, there's nothing about it that's healthy. You have a choice. We make things so complicated. We make things so
Yes.
complicated. It's so simple. Yes, no, choice. You have a choice. Safe people, like we learn about all that stuff, learn about safe sex, just do all that, have your choice and move on with your life. Like it's just so simple. It's so simple. Trust me, everyone. The fear that has been instilled in you is nothing but someone else's agenda to make you fear something that should never have been feared. Because honestly, it's a part of the human experience. I'll say it so many times. It's a part of the human experience. That's it.
Your emotions, your feelings, your desires, those are biological. And those grow within you for a reason. those emotions and those feelings grow between you and another individual for a reason. And if you do not know how to control those desires, and it becomes to the point where those either run you or it infiltrates how you look at people and dehumanizing them or objectifying them, then that is a point. Or even when you feel like those are taking over for you, where you now want to have access to people and want to have access to people's bodies, then that would be a moment where I would say go get some help for that. And, I think we live in a society where it is really difficult to talk about these things. They don't talk about these things.
Mm.
So get the help that you need, speak to somebody that you
Yeah.
need, because it is impulse control. A lot of people have issues with that nowadays, especially with dopamine and all of that. That's why I think it also has a lot to do with, people think they have a right to access your body if they just spend a little bit of time with you. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've met guys along the way that have been like, and I've stopped being friends with them because of this. They've just been like, well, we spend so much money going on a date. What's it all for if I'm not getting any? And I'm like, if that's
Mm.
how you rationalize it, if you don't have money to go somewhere, you can go on dates that don't require that. You can be around people who don't value money as the main source of, as a main commodity in life. You can value people who just want to spend time with you because they actually like you, but that takes you investing in who you are, and that is being taken away systematically by society due to survival mode. But taking it all back to what I was saying, you can find ways to spend time with people who care about you, that you care about, without money being the main focus. And if it's not in the finances right now, that's okay. There are other ways to do that. But just spending money doesn't mean that you have a right to somebody's body in terms of going on a date. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, if you want to hire a service, that's fine, then go and do that. But if you are taking somebody out on a date under the guise of I want to spend time with you, that's actually under the guise of I want to get to know you as a person, not as I actually just want to hook up. Because if that's what you want to do, by the way, a lot of people have an issue with this as well, where it's like they disguise their intentions under, I like you, I love you, I'm in love with you, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. No, actually, I just want to, do it real quick. Be honest about what you want, and then meet people who either want that with you, or leave the people alone that don't. Like, you have to shift your focus of how you look at people, because they're not just body parts. There are places that you could go to satisfy yourself. There are tools that you can use to satisfy yourself, but don't use
Mhm.
people in everyday life as if they're just inconsequential to you and you can just use them like tissue paper. Like, that's a bunch of bullshit, and you need to fix that. That's a you issue. That's not a them issue. If a woman says no, if anybody says no, then that's a no. It's not a challenge. No, they're playing hard to get. Nah, you're just not
Mm.
it. Keep it moving, keep it
Mm.
pressing. Like, it's
You're an
disgusting, this whole
unsafe
like
person.
entitlement. Yeah, this entitlement
You
that
don't
people
deserve
have.
intimacy. You don't
Yes.
deserve intimacy if you're not a safe person. That's my belief. You shouldn't be given the space, the time, or the energy, or the access to someone else's body, someone else's space, if you're just not safe at all. And if you don't consider like any factor of it, even willing to learn and
Mhm.
understand and expand beyond something that clearly needs to be questioned. That's my belief, obviously, but I'm advocating
Mhm.
for anyone else, like the choice to only engage with people who fully consider that you're human beings and consent matters. It's like it's such a priority. I can't say it enough. Consent
Mhm.
matters in every form, even if you decide not to continue as it's happening. That
Right.
is the person that is willing to be in your space and is hearing your space and respecting your space. They're worth the time. And anyone that doesn't is not worth the time. Even, oh God, before I finish, I want to add this last thing in this too, right? I made a decision a few years ago not to, I guess, how do I say it actually? I made a decision a few years ago to not engage in any sort of intimacy in that, because I had such a disconnect with my own body from a history of violence and abuse and sexual assault. So the disconnect with my body was affecting me so much that, like, even myself just touching my shoulder made me feel this all I can describe is like a stranger. It's like my body was a stranger to me for a very long time. And it feels like a very long time because it was too long. So if myself that made this choice listened more to society, I cannot imagine, like, if I had engaged even with that guy, which was a big no-no anyway, but if I did, I can't imagine how much of a disconnect would have continued to ripple through my own space by doing so, because society tries to enforce something that's honestly an illusion. Just because, like, there's just no reason. It's just because. It's just because you get to, I guess, be a part of everyone else's world. Actually, no, I've got to settle down. Just so you can be a part of everyone else's world. And it reminds me as well of pregnancies and weddings. I honestly feel like they have a similar look to them, where someone just gets to say, "Oh yeah, I've had sex with this person," and then it's kind of like, "Oh yeah, I'm pregnant," or "I'm getting married," and they all kind of get celebrated. And, "Oh my god, like, you're no longer a virgin in this part. Oh my god, you're pregnant. Yay, like, you've met this part. Oh good, you're having a wedding in this part." It's just satisfying society.
Mhm.
And yet you have people that have not wanted to get married, but they're doing it. You have people that have not wanted a child, but it's the whole thing of, if you have a child, there's this validation that you've gotten from this, as well as sex. "Oh good, I've engaged in this, and now people know that I'm not a prude or a frigid," all the other bullshit words we created with this. So now I feel like a worthy member of society. They all give me that energy, that vibe. And I think that if I myself engaged in that line, in that generational cycle, honestly, I think I would have ended up in a horrible position with myself. I think the relationship that I would have had with myself would have been incredibly unhealthy. I don't even know, I can't think of a word that's more than disconnect. I think I would have been moving through life, but it's like, if you imagine me over here, my body over here, I think that's how I would have been living life. And this, I wouldn't have probably taken care of my health. I wouldn't have seen this as something that's living, sort of just like, I'm walking and I'm pulling it along with me, and it's a burden. It's a stranger. So if you feel any sense of shame, if you feel any sense of guilt, or if you feel like you're behind, or you feel like you're not a part of society in this way, it's all just an instilled belief system. It's just a thought. It's not actually a true physical reality, right? Because all of it, the whole idea of you being behind for not having sex or kissing someone, is a load of shit. And you chose not to wear makeup, like, you have a right to not choose to not to wear makeup. You have a right to not ride the subway, but instead take your car. Like, that is a part of that. I keep saying it through this episode because I really need to abbreviate it. It is a choice like all these other things. And not having these other things doesn't mean you're behind in life. It doesn't mean you failed at life. It's just, if someone tells you that, if people keep regurgitating that shit to you, obviously there's a part of you that takes that as a, "Oh, well, if I'm not having this or doing this, then I'm not validated. I'm not, like, I'm not seen, I'm not heard, like, there's something wrong with me." That's what it is. It's just this installed idea that something is wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with me. I made a choice for the safety and health of my body. I made a choice to heal my relationship with my body. I put that on the highest fucking pedestal. That was my priority, and it still is my priority. But now, because I chose to do that and not give a shit what some fucking illusion says, some bullshit rhetoric, I have such a healthy relationship with my body that I feel safe to hug people. I feel safe to engage in physical touch. I do love hugs. There are certain people that I've met where I definitely know they're unsafe and I'm like, don't touch me. Of course, you're going to come across it. But I now know these things. I'm learning and I continue to learn. I know my boundaries, but I cannot believe that I'm in a position in my life where I actually love physical touch, and I love a big bear hug, and I wish more people would give me a bear hug. And also it's hard too because you don't know if someone else wants it. So like I'm kind of waiting for people to do it first. But then I know that some people are a bit nervous because they're like, I don't want to overstep. So, that's like the thing there is like safe people. It's worth it to have around. But yeah, I really just wanted to advocate for the fact that it's a thought, it's an idea, it's a belief system, it's not reality. Reality is the fact that many of us have unfortunately gone through things, and in that came trauma, in that came a disconnect, but also on the other side of it, like I've been saying, choice. It's just a fucking choice. And it's a right that you have to make. As simple as that. So the thought and the idea should not take any sort of hierarchy above that. Your choice is first and foremost the most important one. That's the priority.
And I also want to say for those of you who have had partners and feel ashamed or feel like you're less than for, because I know a few things were happening in the early 2000s where it was under the guise of you can only have this many number of partners until you're considered so and so word. You know what I mean? If you look back at your life and you're like, I feel less than, I feel like something was taken from me, I feel shame for the experiences that I've had or for not, quote unquote, choosing better. I just want you to know that you can put that shame down. There's nobody judging you. Your body is for you to own. If you want to reconnect with it, if you feel disconnected with it, like Ashley has said, she has found a way to make that happen for her. You can find a way to make it happen for you. And they're really like, you are not defined by the people you've slept with in the past, and you are not defined by the people you've dated in the past. In fact, you are not defined by anything anybody else has ever done or said to you or about you or done with you. You are defined by yourself. You're your own person, your own soul, your own identity, no matter the gender, no matter the race, no matter where you're from, no matter what culture you're taking a part of. And I know it can be hard when you are surrounded by people who seek public approval and want to be accepted in society as opposed to finding themselves and what feels right for them. But if you're taking that step and if you're deciding, you want to sleep with more people, you want to don't sleep with more people, wherever you are on that spectrum, none of that defines you. Like Ash said, it's a choice that we make. Sometimes we look back and we're like, hey, we made a shitty decision, but it doesn't define your worth. You are able to live still a beautiful life. You are still a beautiful person. You have not been, I don't want to say the word, you are just as special, as magical, as beautiful, and as whole as you were before. And so there's nothing about your body or your physical state or your spiritual, any of that, that is shifted outside of how you feel about yourself. So return to a healthy place for you, wherever that falls, and know that life is meant to be. I mean, I don't want to put my opinion down people's throats, but I think life is supposed to be lived how you want to live it. And whatever's calling towards you is there for a reason. So pursue that. You're beautiful. You're special. Thank you so much for hearing us out. If you made it this far into the episode, you're amazing. And yeah, that's kind of it for me today. I don't know if you have anything else you want to share.
Pop into my head. You know that song? You are beautiful in every single way. Words. Yeah, that song pop into my head when you said that. So don't you bring me down today.
Yes.
No, I'm finito because I'm shutting down at this point. It's been a big day. It's been a big day. And my mind's like, honey, we've had enough. We've had enough. So yes, hopefully, what has been said has somehow resonated with you. Even in a small way is still better. And yeah, until our next episode, people, lovely fellow people, we'll see you then. Well, you'll see us. We won't see you, but you'll see us. So take care. Toodaloo. Bye.
Bye.
Lots of water.